All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Neck Up Live. And this evening, we have the pleasure of having Gail Schmidt. Gail is a 1971 graduate, proud graduate of Glenwood High School, and is the current head cheerleading coach at Wheelersburg High School. And she has held that position for 33 or 34 years. We're not exact on that, but that's in the ballpark. And she is currently a seventh grade language arts teacher at Wheelersburg, which she has been for the past 37 years. So, Gail, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Gail, we talked a little bit before we went on the air. You grew up in New Boston.
It was a wonderful place to grow up.
And you were a proud graduate of Glenwood High School.
I was. So was my mother and my dad.
Okay. Can you tell us what was it like growing up in New Boston, and maybe some of the people who had the most influence on you at a young age?
Oh, growing up in New Boston was wonderful. It's a shame that kids don't have that experience today, because when you went from one end of New Boston to the other, your parents didn't have to worry about your safety or what was going to happen to you. I knew I always had to be home when the street lights came on. But we hung out, we had parks, we hung out at the ballpark where a lot of baseball was played. We hung out in the alleys playing tag and kick the can and riding bicycles and all that good stuff that kids really don't do anymore. Golly. I grew up with my good friend in the alley behind me was Janie Thacker. The Pellegrinans lived up the street from me. I just had a lot of good people around me in New Boston. And like I said, it was a really, really safe place for kids to grow up. Steel mill was going strong, so there were a lot of businesses in New Boston, and I wouldn't trade my childhood for anything.
That's awesome. Gail, so we want to talk about your coaching career. You've been the head coach at Wheelersburg, cheerleading coach for 33, 34 years. So I'm just curious, what is a typical day and a typical week for one of your cheerleaders?
Well, that's different for many of them. Many of them, cheerleading is their only sport. So if that is their only sport, we practice twice a week. We start practice in July. We practice 3 times a week until school starts. Then we practice twice a week. We have football games on Friday night. Basketball games will start soon. Those are on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. My high school girls coach the 5th and 6th grade Pee Wee cheerleaders. That just ended this past Saturday night because the Pee Wee kids got to play on the high school field. It was Super Saturday. So that ties them up on Tuesdays to practice with those little girls, and then Saturday mornings for their football games. I think 7 of my girls right this minute are playing the district soccer game out to Valley. 7 of my girls are on the high school soccer team. One of my girls is in the band, so she cheers, and then she goes out at halftime in her cheerleading uniform and participates with the band. I have girls who will start swimming. They have started swim practice. So that's kind of typical for my girls. We are up to doing anything that is asked of us. We participate in the Positive Pirate Pep Rally in the elementary. They lead the little ones, kindergarten through 3rd grade, in Positive Pirate cheers. So they do a whole lot of stuff.
So basically, your girls, just like all athletes, have a lot of constraints on their time, a lot of commitment, and they put in a lot of time every week. not only in cheerleading, but other things as well, right?
Absolutely.
So I want to talk to you about building a culture. In sports, we hear a lot about, building a certain culture, a culture in the locker room, the school, the community. When you started, how did you go about developing the culture that you wanted in your program?
Oh, when I started, I did 2.5 years being the junior high coach when I started. And the half year was because the person who was the junior high coach decided to step down at the end of football season. I was not a full-time employee at Wheelersburg. I was a substitute teacher. And I had people tell me, why don't you take the cheerleaders? That way, that'll get your foot in the door, because I knew I was going to teach at Wheelersburg. I did my student teaching here, and I believe in this school system and everything they stand for. So I took junior high for 2.5 years. Worked out because my oldest son was playing junior high sports. So I was going to go to the ball games anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So then at the time, there were 2 high school coaches. They had a freshman coach, and then they had a JV/varsity coach. Well, the freshman coach stepped down, so that opened up that position. So I just moved with the freshmen. There were 5 of them, because my oldest son was going to be a freshman and I was going to go to those games anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I had them enrolled in a cheerleading camp, knew nothing about cheerleading camp. And the varsity and JV girls went to a meeting in July, and they asked, they thought they were going to pay for their shoes. Well, when they went to the meeting, their coach told them she was resigning. So my phone started ringing off the hook, asking me if I would take all 20 of them. I laughed. I thought that was the craziest thing I ever heard. I can't take all 20 of the girls. Well, they ended up talking me into it, and that was 33 or 34 years later. And I really, really started out, I had not much of a clue what I was doing. I learned as I went. I knew I wanted the program to be more than just little girls cheering and yelling on a Friday night. I knew I wanted them to be somebody in this community and in this school that people could recognize them in a positive way. And I just started doing things that I thought would promote things that would make them look like they were in a positive environment. They were doing positive things. And it was a lot of trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of trial and error. But I'm proud of the program, I will say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've been at Wheelersburg for a long time. Tell us how the community develops such buy-in, because every program all have buy-in from the community. When did that start?
I think that's been that way ever since I have been a part of Wheelersburg, and it just grows. When I go to cheerleading camp in the summer, I'm at camp with coaches from all around the state.
Mm-hmm.
And when they talk about things that their community does, and when I talk about things from my community, they're kind of in awe, because if it's orange and black and it says Pirates,
Mm-hmm.
these people support it. They
Yes.
will support whatever the kids do at Wheelersburg. And it's been that way for years. I mean, it's a proud community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Definitely. Gail, I'm just curious, as a coach, a lot of times coaches in other sports will change their game plan based up on their personnel that year. Okay. So my question is, do you change your game plan, so to speak, year to year based upon the group of girls you have, or do you select the girls to fit your game plan?
I select the girls to fit my game plan.
Mhm.
I know what kind of program I want. When I took over this program, the cheerleading personnel, you had to have 5 cheerleaders from every grade. 5 freshmen were the freshman cheerleaders. 5 sophomores were the sophomore cheerleader, or were the JV cheerleaders. The varsity cheerleaders had to be 5 juniors and 5 seniors. You know, you're involved in sports. That would be really hard to do now just because of a certain class having an abundance of athletes, where a certain class may not have a great number of athletes. So I had to bring in judges from the outside to pick the cheerleaders. I was not the one that picked. There was a score sheet, there were evaluations. Well, one year, Coach Larry Hall,
Mhm.
he said to me, he said, "Why don't you pick them yourself? Who tells the football coach or the basketball coach or the volleyball coach, we're going to bring these judges in to pick your team that you have to work with?" And I work with my kids about 10 months out of the year.
Mhm.
I thought he was crazy saying that. I'm like, are you kidding me? Me pick them? I thought I'll be run out of town.
Mhm.
So it was not long after that. I really took that to heart because it's like I am the person that has to work with them. So why should someone else tell me this is who you have to work with? So I wrote my little spiel and I went to the school board meeting. And Chris Eaton was the president of the school board at the time. And I don't remember how long ago this was because it's been a while. And I stood up and I made my proposal and whatever. And she looked at the other board members and she said, "Well, that makes perfectly good sense to me." And it took them about 2 minutes to approve that I was the one that got to choose my team.
Mhm.
So I've done that for years.
Mhm.
And people know what my expectations are. We have a packet of information that covers the expectations. What it's going to be like if you are a Wheelersburg cheerleader. I have a meeting before they try out with them and a parent, and I go over all of that so they know when they try out what the expectations are that to be a Wheelersburg cheerleader.
Yeah, Gene, can you imagine having a group, a committee selecting your basketball team? I mean, Larry
Yeah,
Hall. That's great insight by Larry Hall, and he was right. And
absolutely.
I'm glad you listened. Um,
It took me a little while, but I did. I thought he was crazy. I laughed.
yeah, yeah.
It's the best thing that ever happened.
Gail, cheerleaders, I say by nature, have a lot of personality, but you also have a lot of different personalities within your group of girls, right?
Yes.
How do you navigate around that and let their own personalities play out within the system?
They have to be kids. You have to accept them. When you pick them, you accept them for what they bring to the table. Now, they know my phrase, I don't do drama.
Mhm.
I don't have daughters. I
Mhm.
have 2 boys. So
Mhm.
I never got into cheerleading so my daughter could be a cheerleader. I don't have a daughter.
Mhm.
So dealing with, and I have 22 girls this year. They are 22 unique individuals,
Mhm.
but you have to get them to buy in that they are all there for the same reason.
Mhm.
They are there to make the best team we can possibly make. They don't have to go, they don't really have to like each other, but they have to get along because we're all there for the same reason. They don't have to hold hands, but when we all work toward the same goal, that makes it a whole lot easier.
Mhm. That's great. That's great. Um, I don't know if Gene and I put together a athlete's mental performance journal. Um, we've had a couple cheerleading coaches that have incorporated it into their system. So one thing we talk about is, is the pressure to perform at a high level. Now, in football, basketball, you can win 1 out of the 4 quarters and still win, right? You can get beat 3 out of 4 quarters and still win. Baseball, you could get beat 8 out of the 9 innings, but if you win that 1 inning, you can still win. But it has always amazed me in cheerleading. You get that one time at halftime or before the game to perform, and you have to be on point, right? How do you help the girls deal with the pressure and the anxiety and the stress of performing, in front of big crowds, and they basically get one shot at it every night?
They love performing in front of a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is look at their faces. And that's part of cheerleading that I can't teach, the part that comes from the heart. And when it's in their heart, it comes out on their face, their body language. And kids are kids. Well, and even adults, we all make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
There is not pressure as far as if you make a mistake, it's not because you weren't trying. If they made a mistake just because they were horsing around and they didn't care and whatever, that would be one thing. But they don't make mistakes for lack of trying. And as long as they're out there trying and doing their best, I'm good. I'm really good. I'll accept a mistake because they're not perfect. Neither am I. I make mistakes daily. But as long as they're having fun and they are doing what they love, we'll deal with mistakes.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Great. Gail, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. I know you want to make all your girls better cheerleaders, but in the whole scheme, the big picture, what is your purpose? What is your why?
Ooh, that's why I can't retire. I love what I do. When I walk away from this job, and I've been the cheerleading coach as long as I've been the teacher, pretty much. When I walk away, I hope I've left a piece of myself with them because they've certainly left pieces of themselves with me. I want them to be more than just that cute little girl who puts on that cute little uniform. I have most of my girls, if not all of them, will be on the honor roll this 9 weeks. That's important. That kind of stuff is important to me. Why I do this is because kids drive me. Mm-hmm. They make me want to be better. Mm-hmm. And if I can be a little part of making them better, then I've done my job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Gail, I have a couple things I want to share with you. Okay.
Okay.
This is from Mackenzie Wines, which I think used to be Mackenzie Bowen, Billy Bowen's daughter. Gail is such an inspiration to everyone she coaches. Not only does she take on the responsibility of a coach, she plays many different roles. She is there for anything that is needed by any of her cheerleaders, and she also makes sure that they are all staying on the right path and holds us all to a higher standard. Couldn't have asked for a better coach to guide me through my high school years.
Oh, her heart.
I have one more here I'd like to share with you. This is from Morgan Story. I grew up with her dad, Brian, and actually helped coach her older brother, John. Gene, I think you probably know Brian.
Yes.
So this is his daughter, Morgan. Gail has impacted me. I would say she has not only held us to a higher standard as a cheerleader and student, but also morally as a young woman. She is someone who is always in your corner, setting higher goals for myself, carrying myself with dignity and self-respect, are characteristics that I have today that Gail helped instill.
Oh, goodness.
Those are strong statements, and nothing about being a better cheerleader, about being a better human being and a better person. So you have made a huge impact beyond the sport of cheerleading, right?
I hope so. And
you have.
on me.
Yeah, you have. But Gene, you have anything else you want to ask? Or?
Yes. I mean, I've admired you from a distance. Being the coach at Portsmouth and playing Wheelersburg all those years and coming into your gym and just admire what you do.
Thank you.
The greatest, the thing that I like the most is the expectations of success throughout all your programs, throughout academics. Is contagious. And you can clearly see it when people, Wheelersburg gets a tag of, whatever. But when I tell people, when you go up on a little league field and you see those dads up there on the field, whether it's softball or baseball or just community involvement, and that is the reason why Wheelersburg has so much success in its year to year. I mean, it's year after year after year because you have so much buy-in, and you've had a lot to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And Gail, I'd just like to close with this. A couple of years ago, I came to speak, and I think it was at the Methodist Church
Leadership breakfast.
And I did not have my glasses on, so I could not see very far out into the crowd. But I know you and your squad were there. I left there that morning in my car thinking about Rob Woodward, who's probably going to go down as one of the best high school football coaches in the state.
He's one of the best guys ever.
Yeah, he is. Mike Estep was there. One of the best high school baseball coaches in the history of high school baseball.
And a super, super human being. He teaches 7th grade with me. I'm blessed to call Michael Estep not only my colleague, but my friend.
Yeah. And I say me and Gene would second that.
Absolutely.
But Gail Schmidt was also there. Gail Schmidt is an icon, a legend in Wheelersburg. And your name belongs right there with those two. You heard it from your cheerleaders. There's a reason we wanted to have you on the show, because we wanted to give some insight from great coaches and players, and you're definitely that. And also to give some, a lot of people don't look at cheerleading as a sport, maybe.
Right.
My daughter, Barb Gibson, was her cheerleading coach at Portsmouth. And it really opened my eyes to the time, the commitment, and the athleticism involved in it. So that's another reason we want to do this podcast with you. But more than anything, we just wanted to make sure people know the impact you've had on your community and your athletes. And we just appreciate you coming on.
They've had an impact on me. I'm blessed.
Yeah. Do you have anything you would like to add or share to close this out?
No, you didn't make this to where I was nervous after we started, because I was surely nervous when you contacted me and asked me to do this. I'm thinking on a podcast. Oh, goodness. I appreciate your kind words.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely want to give kudos to Kenzie and Morgan, bless their hearts. Two of my, but when I walk away from this job, the teaching and the cheerleading, I'll walk with a smile on my face, because many, many people go to work every day hating what they do. Mm-hmm. I don't. I have been blessed. That's why it's hard to walk, and I'm just not quite ready to do it yet. Yeah. The good Lord gets me up every morning and gets me up this hill. I'm here.
All right. Yeah.
Well, Gail, I hope you're around for a long, long time, and I know the Wheelersburg community and all the girls you coach are better off if you can stay as long as you can.
Yeah.
I know one thing. I would not want to be the coach that follows Gail Schmidt. That's a lot of pressure.
They'll be fine.
Yeah.
We've got a wonderful middle school coach, and hopefully she will be the person that will step in my shoes, and they'll be just fine.
Yeah. All right, Gail. Gail, I can't thank you enough. And just thank you for coming on the podcast. A lot of good stuff, and just wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And Gene, tell Lenny I said hello.
Absolutely, I sure will.
I got to know him through Derek Moore. The Moore family, they are good friends of mine, and I got to know Lenny through Derek. So you tell him I said hi.
I sure will.
Okay. All right, Gail. Thank you.
Thank you.
You.